What am I saying again?
This is MPW,
MPW.
the podcast
with your host,
Xylo Aria. Cool.
A podcast about music production
for the everyday musician,
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Caro C is described as a sonic enchantress by BBC Radio 3 and is a composer, producer and performer of electronic music. She loves to carefully sculpt sound using found sounds, her voice, piano and technology. Caro is also the instigator and project manager of Delia Derbyshire Day, which is an electronic music charity. Welcome, Caro, to the podcast, and it's so lovely to have you here today. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you very much for the invite. I'm good. I'm surviving and even managing to thrive a bit in this midwinter Manchester climes.
Oh, goodness. Right. Yeah. No, I'm enjoying quite a nice summer, actually, in Melbourne. It took a while for it to get here because it was just raining nonstop for so long. So, yeah, I'm on the opposite side, but yeah, hopefully you're doing okay. And it seems like you're thriving, which is great.
Yeah. I love that you're on the other side of the world. That's wonderful.
Yeah. The great things about technology.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. So before we jump into talking about creative production techniques, which I'm super interested to get your thoughts on, I would love to hear a little bit more about your career in music and how did it start for you and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I thought about this and I thought, is career when you start being economically sustainable, or is it when the adventures or journey start? And I think for me, there's kind of two sort of milestones. I guess really it started for me with hindsight more than at the time. I'm realising when I was laid up living in a double-decker bus with disabling back pain and bought a semi-vintage synthesizer and thought I was going to teach myself to play piano, which I did a bit, but mainly got really into the synthesizer's manual. And that was it, really. I just started from there and sort of, followed the joyful curiosity and the fascination and the expression, really, communication. And that's really the root, and it's still the root of what I do. And then I guess it was more when I became from semi-professional, I guess, when I started gigging. So that's around 2002. And then actually sort of decided, right, I'm going to go for it. I went self-employed in the middle of a recession in 2008 after doing a sound engineering course here in Manchester.
Okay. So I guess a bit has happened since 2008 and now. And do you want to expand on that a little bit too?
Yeah, wow. So many projects, so many amazing projects. I don't know about you, but one thing I love about our work is that it's like we're paid to learn. You're always learning, whether it's about yourself and interacting with people and dealing with situations, or whether it's about the magic of music itself, really, and the power of sound and the power of music and the magic of sound. Yeah, so I've done loads of different freelance projects, loads of interesting gigs. When I say freelance projects, that can be anything from, there was a project called Gather Round the Piano where we were going off to villages around Manchester and getting sort of people of different ages into making music, and then they performed that at the £54 million Bridgewater Hall concert venue. Or, I remember working with a group of women that ended up being called the hip hop grannies, the rapping grannies, because they created their own tracks with GarageBand and then did raps on top of it about their childhood memories of this Tudor hall in Stockport that was being restored and reopened. So there's loads of just all these opportunities sort of have come to me, and I've obviously put myself out there as well. And then alongside that, education work. So I work a lot in schools, different ages, and also lots of commissions. I've written music for a sculpture exhibition. I've written music for theatre, for dance. So much. It's been amazing.
Lots of different things. Okay, wow. And you also set up Delia Derbyshire Day as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I moved to Manchester in 2007, and at about the same time, Delia Derbyshire's archive was donated to the University of Manchester. And Delia Derbyshire was really a key pioneer of electronic music in this country, at least. And her most famous work would be her realisation of Ron Grainer's The Original Doctor Who theme. And basically I thought, wow, when someone said to me, you do realise that one of the godmothers of electronic music, her archives arrived in Manchester, and I was like, no and wow. And I just thought, wow, I have to experience this. This is amazing, this gem of electronic music heritage on our doorstep. And I arrived in Manchester at a time when it was like, oh, still a bit weird that you're a woman doing electronic music, which I was quite had enough of by that point with all the interviews since 2002, but also being in Berlin for a couple of years where it was just wasn't an issue. You couldn't even make it a marketing tool. It was like, big deal, you're a woman doing electronic music, just get on with it. So coming back here, and I felt all I was hearing about this heritage of Manchester was very, centred around men, really. So I just thought, okay, time to make some trouble. So it took me a couple of years to pluck up the courage to approach the university. And I just thought, wouldn't it be interesting if mainly women artists looked back at that archive and kind of responded to it creatively. And that's how it started out. I invited two other women artists from Manchester, Eilish Nimian and Naomi Kashiwagi. And we basically, it was Eilish's idea. She said, why don't we just make a day of it? Why don't we get some, we got some funding to be able to create our own creative responses to the archive. However, why not make a day of it? And she said, why not we can call it Double D Day. And then we were going on about DD Day, and then it became DD Douche Day. And then after one, it just, it's kind of grown from there now, registered charity. And we have an education strand working in schools and colleges, doing workshops. And we did our first online courses a couple of years ago. And then we also have a commissioning strand, which is mainly women artists.
Okay. Incredible. And it's just amazing how sometimes these things can come out of a little idea or, something that's excited you and grown and snowballed into something so incredible. So love that. And can you tell me a random fact about yourself that maybe not that many people in music know about you?
I was trying to think of one. Quite a few know I'm a climber, so I don't think that's going to work.
Oh, no, that's great.
I didn't get my driving license till I was 35. Let's go for that. I failed 3 times at 17 and then went back to it and got it first time, the second time around.
Okay. Right. Well, I spent very little time in Manchester, but I feel like just in the UK, the amount of time I've spent there, I've never missed having a car. So I think maybe that's a little bit different to life in Australia where you can survive without a car. And I think you might struggle if you're 35 and haven't driven, but I think that's all good.
Yeah, I think it means that my carbon footprint was hopefully not too bad by the time I got to that point. And actually it's been mainly for carrying equipment because I'd love to use public transport more, which isn't great in this country. But secondly, it's like you cannot carry 6 Ableton pushes and a load of headphones and everything. So it's been more as a kind of, needing it for those kind of things and touring with productions or touring with my own music.
Yes, that does get tricky with public transport for sure. So now if we do a little bit of time travel, do you know what is one event in your life that you feel like you've maybe learnt the most from?
It has to be those years of disabling back pain, really. From the age of kind of 20 to 40, learnt a heck of a lot, whether I wanted to or not. And there's lots of silver linings to an otherwise very challenging cloud at times. And I had to learn some really hard stuff because I wasn't out there being able to earn money, work towards buying a house, obviously all quite middle class kind of pressures or aspirations. I wasn't out being able to make a family, all that kind of stuff. And I really had to sit with myself. And I remember telling myself, this is the real deal. I'm really learning to be human. And that's something that stayed with me, really, that humility, if you like.
That's beautiful. And obviously, it sounds beautiful now, but I'm sure there were times where that was really, really difficult. But it's a great ability to be able to look back on it and see what good things have come out of it that you wouldn't have come across otherwise, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be doing music, I don't think. There's no way. It's kind of saved me to when I started making music. And then when I think about all those years, those days I was laid up because it's age of the internet, I was still building my profile. I was on disability benefits, but I wasn't able to go and work in a workplace, but I could, study up via a laptop. And I had the important currencies, the vital things you need to really develop as an electronic musician, which is time, space, and autonomy. So, I had ample of those and not much resources. I literally started off with just a laptop and headphones. So for a long time, and it was mainly my tools, and to a certain extent still is. Although I do really cherish being able to sit at my studio now with my lovely subs and my Yamaha. So, HS7. So yeah, in that sense, I was lucky in that I was able to grow and develop, but still be kind of active online. And so I was actually building my portfolio. I was building my career, even though I couldn't, I was quite bedbound or housebound.
So yeah, a few silver linings there. So it's great to see. So coming to our topic today, which is looking at creative production techniques. So can you tell me, what does creative production techniques mean to you?
Well, I guess I'm almost what they would call a kind of outsider artist, and I'd consider myself more of an artist than a musician or an engineer, even though obviously the three there's a Venn diagram and they hugely overlap.
Yeah.
But there's something about kind of putting your own stamp on it, daring to be rare, I call it. Sort of, it's about authentic expression. And I find the beauty of technology. One of my lyrics in my last album was how I'm falling in love with electronic sound all over again, because you can touch those emotions, whatever it is, or you can touch those things with sound kind of thing, or the way you treat that sound. So there's something really beautiful for me when I'm in that flow, if you like, of sculpting a track. So it's that, you're always balancing that formula versus authentic expression, dare I say freedom of expression, that kind of side. It's an art and a science, isn't it? What we do, it's an art and a science, and if you want to do it to a particular standard, then you have to be able to grasp the science. However, I think we mustn't forget it's an art, and it's actually about humanity. The music I love is where the humanity shines through. So for me, it's those little touches, or it's the happy accidents, and it's also about play. It's remembering, it is a wondrous thing. What is music? Why do we need it? It's like, and what works for one person's medicine is another person's torture, and it's a wondrous thing. And someone said the other day something like, if it's something that needs to be expressed and you're able to express it, then you've got a friend for life, and you've hopefully got a lifeline as well, So a lot of what we're doing, helping or trying to be the midwives or enabling people who have more barriers, let's say, are able to express themselves on their terms with accessible tools, then it's about what do you really want to say and how do you really want to say it? Thinking about those confines of musical formula or the culture that you're living in, really. I don't know if that made much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I loved the fact that you're saying the daring to be rare, but also cherishing those happy accidents and things that happen that maybe you weren't exactly expecting, and finding that play and fun in what you do. Because I think especially when in your mind you are trying to maybe turn it into a career or something like that, you can lose that fun, and it all becomes about, trying to find your next single and all of that stuff and putting all the pressure on it, which can take out the joy and the human touch that you mentioned that it's all about. So
and the why you
great.
came to it in the first place, why you chose it in the first place. I think, no matter how many years we've been doing it, I do like to remind myself that why did I choose music, or why have I bothered to keep going, kind of thing. I'm not insanely popular by any means, but, I have got enough to sustain myself and sustain what I do. And one of my latest mottos is community, not commodity, to sort of try and deal with those, dare I say, a bit toxic pressures of success, which is basically popularity, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And when we spoke about this topic, you mentioned a few different techniques, such as found sound or using sound bites and field recordings. So if we start with found sound, can you tell me how you go about using this in your music?
Yeah, so really it's sampling, it's listening, it's hearing things. So for example, for a while I was really quite obsessed with the sound of a ping pong ball on the right kind of wood. It just makes a lovely sound. And so I would taught myself to play the ping pong ball live over one weekend on various surfaces in various tempos and time signatures. And that for me, just, I don't know, there's something about what I call the magic in the mundane, really. So, another one is in one of my albums, one of my tracks, I've got that lovely sound of when you've just fried an egg and you put the pan under a cold water tap and it goes shh. And so I would use this as percussive sounds more than anything. I've also got 2 glass tumblers. When they hit together, I should have brought them to show you, to demonstrate. But yeah, little sounds really that just prick up my ears. And we had this kind of old mustard pot in the house that we would use as the sugar pot for a while. It got dropped eventually, poor thing. But opening that, if you get that pop, that pop you can get of a lid when you take a cork off, and it would just make me go, whoo, and it just brought joy to me. So there's something unique about putting those in as your percussion. Once I used a staircase in a 60s sort of concrete apartment block as a whole drum kit for a commission down on Hailing Island. And I got my kick, I got the snare, I got everything from that drum kit. So there's something about, it's the uniqueness of the palette. It's a bit quirky. I'm always trying to balance the adventurous with the familiar, if you like. So, I'll still have an 808 kick because that, sometimes you just can't beat an 808 kick from that classic drum machine. However, it might be with this little ratchet sound that I really like that I'm using as my high-end percussion. So yeah, it's things like that. There's also kind of a sound that I might hear that in one of my podcasts I was producing, there was this little ratchet sound that was in the background of someone's between their speaking. I was like, oh, I like that. So I sort of lifted it. It's like being a magpie, bit of a sonic magpie, and going, oh, I like that. So I'll sort of put it aside and then I'll go, oh, I'll try that with that. And it's sort of, it's about I think it creates a bit of a unique atmosphere. It hopefully makes the listener go, oh, that's an interesting sound. And when you're doing it live, of course, people go, you've got to come and see this woman playing. She's playing the colander with chopsticks. And people go, what?
That's amazing. And personally, as someone who produces, I think, a lot with samples and pre-recorded sounds, even just hearing you talk about these different ideas, I feel like has opened up a whole new way of looking at sound and appreciating the different sounds that you hear, and maybe just in your everyday life listening out a little bit more to what you might use in different ways in your music. And when you do hear these sounds and you're thinking, wow, that sounds incredible and I want to sample that, how do you go about it? Because I think sometimes, and I remember actually we were camping a little while ago and we were just throwing some rocks into the pond, and then sometimes they would hit another rock, and I was thinking, wow, that is a beautiful sound. But then I remember thinking, well, I don't have anything with me, and when am I going to be here again with equipment and all of that? And it just disappeared from my mind until I just thought about it now. So how do you go about that? And is there some specific equipment that you need, and are you recreating the situation? And can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'd have my ideal and then I'd work down to the no frills, do what I can. So the ideal would be I would either record it. I've got one of those Rode IXY mics that you can plug straight into your phone, and there's a few mics, like little stereo mics you can treat yourself to. I've also got a Tascam, I've got a handheld recorder. Someone was asking at dinner the other night, what's one of your favorite collections, and I went straight to my microphone, so you will have to excuse I do have quite a few microphones. I don't get my nails done and I don't spend money on makeup, but I do have quite a few microphones. They all have their purpose. They all have their purpose. Or I'll either plug it straight into my laptop, so you can either use a USB mic, or I'll use my stereo mics, or I'll use sort of condenser mic, the same one vocal mic I'm using now. So it all depends really. It might well be that I just get my phone out and just try and get the best I can, and then I'm just like, I'm going for the lo-fi aesthetic, which again can sometimes really work within a track, can't it? So I think you do it however you can in that moment, but if I can take it to the studio and record it as cleanly and warmly as possible, then I will.
All right. So it's good to know that there are a few different ways that we can go about it. And if you have absolutely nothing, then maybe the phone is a good option to start with.
Yeah, or a tablet if you can get hold of, especially I find things like GarageBand on an iPad quite amazing. The quality can be okay.
Okay, that's good to know. And Then we talk about voice sound bites is something you mentioned as well. So can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess the recording techniques are quite similar. I'll have my ideal studio set up and be able to go to the person whose voice they're contributing to my work, or it'll be asking people to send things on their phone that they've recorded via WhatsApp. Just to mention that, yeah, obviously mic technique and mic placement does become key, especially with any quality of equipment you use. So there is certain principles that you'd want to look up on YouTube or elsewhere for that. But yeah, so there's quite a few commissions I've done. There's tracks I've made where, I don't know, I thought it would be nice to get other people's perspectives. The one I'm thinking of is a track called Kindness that I did. And I asked 4 people I knew 3 questions about kindness, like what is kindness to you? What's the kindest thing someone has done for you? And it's just amazing. People come out with poetry and they don't realise it. A lot of the sort of community sort of engagement projects I've worked on, again, stories around, say, the Tudor Hall that I mentioned. There's also been working with NHS staff here in Manchester, at the hospitals here, and nursing staff, and asking them about their work, about their experience of the pandemic, and then putting that to music and kind of honouring their work really as much as possible. So that's another commission. So it's something about, I find it really beautiful how you can get poetry from people without them realising it. Obviously, it's all within their consent and their approval and done with the right ethics. But there's something there that then you've got something to respond to. So especially with the kindness track, I then wrote a verse, a lyric, which was inspired by what other people had said. And it made me think about things differently. So yeah, I think it can have a powerful effect really to hear from people who don't usually broadcast their views or their experiences in that way, and also to step back, and there's a huge amount of artistic license. I think you mustn't forget that, I'm still editing, I'm deciding, I'm sort of putting the pieces together, and then with their approval we'll publish it. But there's very much that.
Okay, lovely. So with these sound bites on the kindness, did you use them as they were in the music, or did you look at like turning them into instruments, like chopping up what they said, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, I have done that. As one thing I was going to mention as a creative production technique is taking little syllables really and loading them up in a particular sampler. I use Ultrabeat, and then using that as my percussion sort of kit, if you like. There is that. And I think when it's people's contributions about their personal thoughts, feelings or experiences, I feel there's a duty to honour that trust really and that sharing. So I try to keep it as close to they intended as possible. And again, just really hopefully when it's reflected back to them, they go, wow, did I say that? Like, for example, one friend said, I am fantastic, but I'm more fantastic when I'm with others. And I was just like, what an awesome line.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I am fantastic, but it's just like the way she said it is just like, oh, it's just amazing. I'm doing a project at the moment with a friend, a DJ, is around mycelium, and so in its widest sense, and sort of, how that, it's a bit of a zeitgeist, I think, with artists. I know Björk's latest album was about it, and I know a few other artists that are exploring it, and it's very much about that cooperation, community versus competition, and the interconnectedness, all those kind of ancient principles, really, timeless principles that I think we need more than ever. And just hearing people come out with stuff, and the different voices as well, it's what people carry in their voices can be really beautiful as well.
Yeah, it's just opening up a new world of ways to use everyday sounds for me, which is lovely to hear from you as well. Of just, like you mentioned, people's voices that might not be broadcasting or putting their thoughts out on wider platforms. So yeah, that's great. And then kind of mentioning field recording. So I guess maybe parts of that we spoke about through the found sound as well. But if we think about maybe the found sound being a specific sound that we're looking for, and field recording, or actually, you can let me know, do you see that as something different to found sound?
Yeah, I think I do, because I think it's almost like the found sound is more of a micro. You're sort of going you're zooming in, aren't you, to one, like you say, one particular object or one particular action or sound. And then usually you're trying to get as clean as possible, one shot sample, so then it's there in your library, or maybe a little rhythm. I've done rhythms with climbing gear. It made more sense to record them as a loop. But when it comes to field recording, I think there's something more about being, witnessing, and opening up the zoom, if you like, to get more of a wide angle on. I'm just thinking, for example, I've stuck a microphone outside the window when the bird song's particularly nice and the traffic is quiet. Something like that, which I've used a lot. I even use it as a background on a meditation for a client that, they want bird song on the back. I was like, oh, you'll have suburban Manchester, its quietest hour. And so I bet someone goes, it's that same old bird. I can hear it's the same bird every 20 minutes. But no one's complained yet. We don't have a massive variety of birds. But, why not have those everyday suburban birds have their moment,
Of course.
So, that kind of thing. I know a lot of people who love to work with field recordings that give things texture. They give things, again, a kind of setting. It might be a setting. It might be a soundscape you're working on. It might be just an intro or an outro. Quite often, you'll only notice it, your intro and outro, and it might be you want that busy cityscape for a particular story you're wanting to tell. Or I know Billie Eilish, she used, was it some sort of pedestrian crossing or a lift or something like that, which if ever you go to Dublin, have you been to Dublin and heard the pedestrian crossings? Oh my God, they're amazing. They're amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to do.
Right.
You to do a tour of the world and all their different pedestrian crossings because you get some great sounds. And the Dublin one is a kind of like definitely a rave one.
Oh, no way. Okay, I might actually be in Dublin later this year, so I'll
Check
need
it
to
out.
listen out for that.
Make sure you got your best mic with you.
Oh, yes, I'm excited. Okay, that's great. So it's more soundscapes that you're talking about there with the field recordings. So are there particular types of mics that you would be using specifically for field recording?
Ideally, I would have an extra one or two. Some people, again, have just recorded on a phone or a tablet. I think you can, if you can get any mics with the fluff on them, the wind shields, because the wind is your nemesis. You can neither record it nor avoid it if it's there. It's really hard to record wind nicely, but it's very hard to avoid it if it's there. So any wind shields usually come in handy. And then there's things like, I'm also just thinking of raindrops on particular surfaces can be really nice to record, and obviously you'd be under the shelter, hopefully. Things like that. But it's trying to get that wider picture, I guess.
Right. So we've spoken about field recordings, found sound and voice sound bites. Are there any other techniques that you want to mention that you particularly enjoy?
Yeah, I guess those happy accidents that we mentioned, especially something like a vocal take, and there'll be or a particular sound, and I'll go, oh, actually, and then I'll play with that sound, manipulate it and see where it takes me. There might also be sometimes the breath. I quite like working with the breath sometimes as an instrument, as opposed to, whether it's kind of like on the offbeat. And then, I think it's listening out for those happy accidents. There's also obviously how you're actually, I use a lot of automations, how you're actually recording and sculpting the sounds. I try to do as much automation as possible so that, for example, on a synth, I'll just play around, or EQ, I'll play around and just try out different things, really. And again, coming back to that play, coming back to that exploration. And then you can always undo nowadays, can't we? We're not still working with tape like Delia and her peers did. So, I think, again, it's kind of follow that fascination. I think I almost try and separate it between right brain and left brain tasks as well. So allow myself that time to play. I was watching a video the other day, and there's this, I can't remember his name, but he's recording everything through a mic, all his ideas, the beat, the kick, everything, just to get it out, to get those ideas out, because obviously it's got more human flow to it, and then you transfer that to your technology. There's little things like that I'll do, sort of little sounds like utterances that can be quite nice, again, within the texture. And if you really compress them and bring them close or take them further away, they can, I think you can draw the listener in with these little details that hopefully will be quite satisfying, that might take more than one listen to discover.
Yeah. Lovely. And something you mentioned there about the happy accidents and also the right brain and left brain. Is there anything that you do or any techniques that you have that allow yourself to be in that playful mode without the kind of critical part of your brain kicking in and allowing this to happen a little bit more?
Yeah, I think I've done it with my kind of coaching, facilitation, teacher work, and therefore I try to do it to myself too, is sort of say, yeah, the judge is great. The judge is going to need to step in, but just not yet. The judge can come afterwards because he doesn't even know what it's judging yet. So it's almost like the editor, the engineer, the judge, the manager, all those people step in afterwards, the executive producer. For now, let's just get the ideas down. Let's play around, and there might be something in there that you feel, oh, that's a bit of magic. So, yeah, I think it's just knowing that that's going to come in really handy, but you can just relax and have a cup of tea for now.
Okay, so maybe just being aware of it within ourselves. And when we hear that critical voice pop up, we can say, okay, I need you, but not right now.
Yeah.
And you can just relax.
You're a valuable part of the process, but just chill for now. And I think there's also something around coming at it fresh, taking a break. So whether it's going for a walk, washing up apparently is one of the best things you can do. Things like that, because you're still somehow in your creative mode, but you're not thinking about directly. You're engaged in a task. Walking, cycling, running is really good, and swimming, it helps you get into the alpha state. So all these kind of things that take a break, come back to it fresh, and then again say, right, okay, this is my time for play, and then we'll get serious kind of thing. That sometimes helps as well.
Great. And do you have any techniques to find inspiration when you're feeling a bit stuck?
I think if I'm stuck with a track after I've had that break, if I need a break, take a break. If not, I think it would be get up and move around, because music is as much as the physical thing that you feel as the head thing that you hear. And if I'm thinking it needs something else, but I don't know what it is, or I don't know what's going to happen next, I'll be moving to it or dancing to it. And then I'll be like, you'll find something that's out of time, or you'll feel something that's out of, maybe it doesn't fit sort of with the tuning, or it might be, this needs to happen next. I can feel it now. Or I don't know, there's something there for me anyway that I find is bring it back to the physical can be really useful, and again, have some fun with it. And if it's not working, then yeah, I'd say step away rather than mess with it too much and come back with a fresh perspective.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I think I've done the dancing to it, but right at the end of the process. After you get the master back, that's the time. But no, actually, I like the idea of bringing that in a little bit earlier and kind of seeing how your body reacts to the music as well.
Yeah.
So that's a different technique, which I'm, keen to try. So now we're jumping into our speed quiz. Caro, are you ready?
I don't know. Go for it anyway.
All right. So we have 5 quick fire questions, and it's just like one or the other, and you just pick which one you are keen for. All right. So what's worse, laundry or dishes?
Laundry. I still appreciate being able to wash up. So yeah, laundry.
Okay. All right. Which do you like more, headphones or speakers?
Difficult. Speakers, if they're nice speakers.
Okay. Again, which do you like more, science or maths?
Science. I understand it a little bit more.
Okay, that's good. Festival or rave?
Oh, God, that's so hard. Festival.
Digital or analog?
In an ideal world. Oh, no, I'm a digital.
Okay. All right. Well, that was good. It was sort of on the half speedy side.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it was good.
So hard. I always want to complicate it and go, well, it depends. I was like, no, try and stick to the parameters.
Yeah, no, we have a few it depends come up sometimes. I think maybe in music we just fall into that a little bit. It's not always one or the other. We can go about it many
but
ways.
It's fun. Everyone can analyse away now.
Exactly. So coming to our top tips, can you tell me what is your one top career tip?
Be reflective. Be prepared to respond. Be responsive. Be reflective, both to your own needs internally and externally. So a lot of us, there will be barriers. In fact, probably for all of us, whether they're external or internal or both. And it's really checking in whether what you want is healthy. It's, again, that thing of, am I just trying to fill some lack of love, therefore I want to be popular? I don't know, just being reflective in that sense. Because I see a lot of people being really hungry, and I've been there myself, hungry to take things in a certain direction or a certain outcome or a certain job or a certain, I don't know, just being fixed on things when actually, when I can step back and say, yeah, this isn't working. Or actually, do I really want that? Do I really want to? Yeah, so I think it's something about being reflective, and we've got to be brave, and we've got to act on our instincts, and we've got to keep being, brave and taking risks. But there's something about being reflective, and within that, you find a bit of humility and integrity, I think.
I love that, actually. And I think it's something that maybe I've slowly learnt a bit more over time, and maybe it's because we're surrounded by a society that's very, well, I don't want to say materialistic, but you are trying to achieve and kind of get here and do this and do that and all of that stuff, but really thinking how much of that is what you really want and what is important, other than thinking about what do you think is important for other people to have and then kind of wanting that same thing. So beautiful. Love that. And what is your one top self-care tip?
Listening. I try to sit out in the garden, again, only suburban, but still I have a garden, but sitting with the window open, if not for 5 or 10 minutes a day. And again, just listening. And if I'm walking, I try to be the elements as much as possible and remember that, again, I'm part of the web of life, if you like. We're not separate. I think it's easy for us to talk about this thing called nature that's separate, but it isn't. It isn't. We are made of the same stuff. We are the same stuff. We've all got the same whatever life force. I don't know. It can get a bit spiritual with it, but there's something about that overinflated self-importance, but at the same time it makes you realise how important you are, because you're one tiny particle in the soup of consciousness or whatever. But in that sense of I just find if I remember to listen out there instead of rehashing the past, rehearsing the future, or just general self not very niceness going on in your head. So there's something about that connectedness that I find that is what I try to go back to if I am getting embroiled in any of that inner stuff or just stress in general and struggles that life presents.
No, I love that. And I feel like we could go on to a whole other episode about connectedness and everything. And I do completely agree with you. I think more and more it feels, I don't know if we can call it apparent or whatever, to me that every single thing is connected. And by maybe being selfish and hurting other people, we are just hurting ourselves, because it's all part of the same thing. So but anyway, we won't get too much into the deep spiritual as we're finishing up, but
we'll start another podcast for that.
That's it. Well, that's been really, really lovely, Caro, and I feel very inspired to jump into creating something new now. So thank you for that, and I hope our audience is feeling the same. So
excellent.
It's been lovely.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
My biggest 3 takeaways from Caro's episode was, firstly, to be open to those happy accidents that happen while we are creating and use them as inspiration. For example, any ums and ahs in our singing or any breath sounds could be used in new ways. My second biggest takeaway was to listen out for ordinary sounds in our lives that could inspire you in your creation. For example, opening a jar or a ping pong ball on a table can create a unique soundscape. My last takeaway was to remember to find the fun and the play in our music creation, because at the end of the day, music is about connection, which we can sometimes lose in the process. That's it from us this week, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.